If you want to. You want to read it?
Why is the guy even here?
Yeah, he can run. He can be
Why don't you read this, and I'll read for you. Start right
Is this your phone? That's fine.
And then he really doesn't want to, he likes Becky. Because I really think she's one runs. This is full of so many.
I haven't seen the email yet.
They're building
But I got that after three.
so in 18 months or so, she's probably going to move on to the city council. That's goofy. Yeah, I don't know why Tom Keller did that.
Oh man, just like that. Oh, like I was sitting there and I was minding my own business over in Marissa, and she's like, "Hey, I just wanted to talk to you," and I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Shit, because I'm like back here.
I didn't know you had to
She kind of really.
I know Jim supported him.
When's your kickoff?
If you get him up here.
Yeah, we're ready. Pretty close.
Robert.
Maker, how you doing?
You want to get home to dinner, Robert?
I had my dinner.
Oh, okay.
It was very good. Tostada and
No, don't tell me.
That's all right. Wait, huh?
How are you?
How's the crush going? Slowing down?
Yeah, I guess Tim's gonna make a motion. I guess we can do that. For this.
It's okay. Never mind.
Myself and Charles have to leave the room, I guess. Water business. Okay, we're ready then.
Did you start reading your?
Okay, we'll call the meeting in order. The Newman City Council and Redevelopment Agency of October 10th, 2006. Please stand for the pledge and the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me and bow your head in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to reconvene once again this evening. We pray that you guide over us as we make decisions on behalf of the city of Newman. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Tim. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Parker?
Present.
Marquez?
Present.
Martinez?
Present.
Rico?
Present.
Mayor Castillo?
Present. Declarations of conflicts of interest. I have one this evening with regular business item A, Monte Vista Estates, only because I live within 500 feet of the project. And also I have one warrant item that I will be pulling when we get to that item.
All right, and I have also 10A. I'm actually the applicant on the final map.
Okay, item 6, ceremonial matters. Proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month. Councilmember Marquez was
Sure.
going to help me with this.
All right. This is a proclamation of the mayor of the city of Newman. Whereas the Hispanic population of Newman accounts for over half of the residents therein, and whereas the United States recognizes National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th through October 15th to commemorate 2004 to commemorate the anniversary of independence for the Latin American countries Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. In addition, Mexico's independence on September 16th and Chile on September 18th. And whereas the city of Newman invokes the vision of uniting all of our community by celebrating alongside persons of diverse cultures, let us honor our fellow citizens during this traditional occasion and recognize their contributions to our society.
Now therefore, I, John Fantasia, Mayor of Newman, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, National Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Newman. Thank you very much. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Item 7, items from public, non-agenda items. If
Thank you,
any-
Mr. Mayor. At this time, I might interject the item for closed session. Is that correct, Council?
Time to do it now, or?
Yeah, this would be a good point order before the public hearings either way. We have an item that's meets the finding that you have to make to add something to the agenda. It's come to your attention after the agenda was posted and there's a need for immediate action. However, we can't put those facts on the record because it involves litigation and therefore a closed session matter. So if you just make a motion to add the
I'd
item.
move for adding a closed session to the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Items from the agenda, non-agenda items. If anybody has anything that they would like to bring before us that is not on the posted agenda, now would be the time. Seeing nothing. Agenda items, when the item comes before us and you'd like to comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and try to keep your comments to under 3 minutes. Public hearings, we have none this evening. Consent calendar, approval of warrants, approval of minutes of the September 26, 2006 regular meeting. And I would like to pull item number 031175, Valley Park Service. My wife is an employee there, and also I am helping out there part-time. So could we have a motion without that one item?
Move for approval of consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to introduce that item?
Sure. I'll introduce that item. Is there a motion for its approval?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Moving on to regular business, item A, adopt resolution number 2006, next number, a resolution approving the filing of the final map of Monte Vista Estates Phase 2. And I will be leaving it. Hand it over to you, Mayor Pro Tem. Tim.
We won't leave you guys out there too long.
Supposed to rain tonight too, guys.
On agenda item number 10A, we'll hear from staff regarding the resolution approving the final map of Monte Vista Estates.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As you know, Monte Vista Estates is located on the north side of town between Hardin Road and Big Lane. Phase 1 of that map has already been filed, and if you've been out there recently, you'll see that the roads are under construction. All the utilities are all installed as we are. As part of the Phase 1 final map, there was a just over 20,000 square foot remainder. And that was under separate ownership. It is now being brought in to be subdivided in accordance with the originally approved map for 3 lots. And so therefore we are requesting that you go ahead and approve this final map so it can be recorded.
Any discussion, gentlemen?
I move for adoption of resolution 2006, next number, adopting final map number 03-02 Monte Vista Estates, phase number 2.
Second that motion.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Show that it passed. 3 with 2 abstaining. Conflict.
You gotta stay out there. Jim.
Welcome back.
Really? I'll have to watch the tape and find out. Thank you, Tim.
You're quite welcome.
Item B, review standards for downtown events.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. At the September 12th meeting, the council requested that we start looking at standards for our downtown area, and staff was directed to come up with some guidelines for the use of the downtown, and that's the purpose of this report. As you can see, what we're looking at, and you already kind of set part of the standards for me, because at that meeting, we were looking at what days of the week we'd be looking at participating or having these events on. So for like one day's events, we're looking at Sundays, because that was one of the things that the council had brought up. But we're looking at events that may be run into 2 days, and so we're looking at either Saturday or Sunday and Monday, if that Monday happens to fall on a holiday. So I'm looking to see, as I go, if you have any kind of questions or anything, please to stop me, we can go over those areas. The other one I'm looking at is that you said is you wanted to have these events during daylight hours. And so we were looking at when the majority of that would occur. So we're looking at about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Of course, that could be adjusted at any time, but because of the hours during the winter months. Street usage. I'm looking at one block, and I was kind of gauging this a little bit from the Mexican Heritage celebration that we just had, and they had at the max, I would say, at their peak, about 1,000 folks. So, and it looked to me like they were able to have that it wasn't crowded, and it wasn't it was comfortable, I think, for that amount of people. So I was looking at one block for first-time events and to be one block. I was also looking at 1,000 or less to remain that at one block. If we're looking at 1,000 or more, I'm looking at going into a second block, and 2,000 would require the use of pretty much the whole downtown from Merced all the way up to Kern. The other thing I was looking at was insurance. We're looking at what some of the cities have gone to, and our RMA is kind of is leaning towards, is going towards. Currently, we have $1 million, which I think was a large amount at one time, but it doesn't take a whole bunch really for $1 million to be absorbed. So we're looking at raising that up from $1 million to $3 million, and have the city also as additional insured, which we currently have already. And we were also putting a time limit on this because we were wanting to have that where we would have those things in effect in advance of the event, so we wouldn't have to have those things stopped or redone at that point. Security, we were looking at the total cost of security for an event be the responsibility of whatever the event organizer or fundraiser is, and that one half of that. We were looking at a deposit. One of the things that we were kind of looking at here is if we have somebody that comes on board that we don't have any history with, there's no guarantee that we might be able, if they lose money at their event, that they'd be able to pay for the services that they had used. So we're looking at having a deposit on hand, at least half of what we're anticipating that cost to be. So we would not, if the event or the organizer was not able to pay, that we would not be out the total amount of our services. So we're looking at having a deposit that would be with the finance department to be at least half of what we're anticipating that cost to be. Also, we're looking, as far as security is concerned, is how many officers that we would be recommending. And for general events, we're looking at about one officer per 200 attendees, or again, I have kind of an out here where whatever I deem necessary as a chief of police. If we're looking at things that have alcohol, bands, dances, we're looking at about 2 officers per 300 attendees. Again, those are the estimates that we're going to be getting from the event people. And again, this could be adjusted to what I would feel or deem necessary, just in case. If you recall back, we had when we had the shooting with the motorcycle gangs in Laughlin, we really beefed up security. So this would allow for that kind of flexibility if we had such an event come up. The other thing we're looking at is the music or amplified sounds that would not go before 8 a.m. or after 5 p.m. unless it was approved prior. And what we're looking at is we still have residents that actually live in that downtown area, and at these amplifications, they would probably carry over blocks, and the residential area is not that far from our downtown. So we're looking at when people would normally be awake during their waking hours. I mean, some people probably work at night, so you wouldn't be able to accommodate those folks. But then we were also looking at the use of electrical outlets and other things that would have to be approved by the council. And in going over what other cities were putting in place, extension cords and according to the RMA, that's a big issue. You want to make sure it's a trip factor, and it's also water and these cords don't mix. So they were looking at something that they wouldn't be trying to use regular interior cords. It would be very flimsy and might come apart, or there might be some kind of electrical hazard. So we're looking at something that would be approved. So they were looking at 14.3, seemed to be the standard for all these different policies I was looking at from other cities. Trip hazard is the major thing with these, and So we would be looking at making sure that that foot traffic and things would be accounted for, that they would have either covers or taped or some kind of provision so those cords would not be able to move or be able to be picked up by feet. Again, like we were talking about with electrical cords, again, that's the proper size for the intended use. If they have something that's 220, that 14.3 isn't going to work. So depending on what kind of equipment they're putting out there, we want to make sure that we have the proper wattage and proper cord for those events. We're also looking at, one of the things that's really important to me is to have an event plan. That means everything that they're having on that event, where they're going to have tables, where they're going to have vendors, where they're going to have, if they have want to have a beer garden, or where they're going to have these different things, to have those things all laid out. So we're able to verify, number one, where they're going to have, that they're going to be able to maintain a 20-foot area in the center for emergency vehicles, the police, ambulance, and fire to be able to get through to administer their services. And we're looking at having that at least 60 days in advance. We're looking at time frames here, having those things well in advance so we can work with the individual and not having just a plan and knowing where things are at without having any say into these things. So we're looking at having something already in place and having that right there. We're also looking at the cleanup of these. We haven't had an issue at this point, but we're also looking at one of the things that I had seen in some of the other policies that other cities had used is cleanup. And they were looking at $1,000 seemed to be very reasonable. And when I was talking to our public works director, that was seemed to be a number that he was not objecting to as far as what it would cost his staff to be able to do a cleanup if they needed to. Similar to what we do when we rent the Louis J. Newman building and those kind of things. We may require a deposit at that point. But our downtown is pretty much our jewel. We want to make sure that we have, it's going to take a lot of manpower to be able to get that, so, just because of the mere size of it. We're looking at approvals. And another thing is, one of the things we want to make sure is when things come before council, one of the things that we've been kind of rushed sometimes, and staff doesn't feel that that's appropriate to rush the council on some of these events. So we want to make sure that they have that at least 45 days prior to the council, and that this is all done prior to any kind of advertising of that event. We're also looking at, I was directed to do with this last event that we had, is that we were looking at first time, because we are kind of encroaching on our business community. We want to make sure that they're able to thrive. So what we're looking at for first time events is that they provide at least 90% of any business that's affected, and that would have to be in writing. And then yearly events, we have a few of those that go on, and one of those being the Newman Fun Run, and that they provide a flyer making the downtown business community aware of the type of event, time, and place, and streets. They pretty much, they put up a flyer anyway, but this would make sure that the business community is well aware of those, so they can make any kind of allowances, either doing promotionals or closing their business early, or whatever they would deem necessary at that point. Health permits. One of the things that I know for the Fall Festival that's a requirement, and so we were looking at in other policies as well, that food vendors, when food is introduced into an event, that we have those health permits in advance of the event for any food that's going to be sold there. To me, that just makes sense. It's you don't want to have something that's not going to be good for the public. So I think that would be a reasonable thing to be able to put on. Another thing that keeps popping up time and time again, which I never thought about too much until I started looking into this, was canopies or other temporary structures. Trip hazards are one thing, having these things secured down. They're looking at where people could get injured or hurt. So they're looking at having these things, especially like stages and things, because if they're not put together properly, or if they are not situated correctly, that could pose either a trip or health hazard for somebody. So we want to make sure those things are in place and that they get looked at and we're looking at who else would be better qualified to be able to look at that. I don't know structures that well, so we're looking at the building department, our city building department, to take a look at these structures prior to those things being, especially like stages and things where people are going to be standing and movement's going to be occurring on them. So we want to make sure those things are safe. Bleachers. Again, we're looking at the building department to see where those things that they're going to be safe. When they're in transit, they have a chance to be able to be loose, things to break off. So it's a look at having those things looked at. And we're looking at any cost that's going to be incurred, that would also be something that would be passed on to the event organizer. I mean, there's going to be a cost for the city building inspectors to come out and take a look at these different things. So we're looking at for the canopies and temporary structures and if bleachers, if those things are going to be utilized, that those be inspected prior and the cost be incurred by the promoter. Advertising, again, I've touched on this, but we're touching on it again, that the event organizer shall not advertise or promote the event until it has been approved by the city council. This is one that I was looking at to make sure that that there wasn't any, that it wouldn't make the council feel bad about having an event that's already been advertised and then not being able to have that event going on. So we're looking at having your approvals prior to that. So, and then alcohol sales, we're looking at. These are pretty basic ones. These are ones that I've taken out of the current permit that we currently have, and that's one that they have to have an ABC license, and it has to be one for a 1-day permit or a 2-day permit if it happens to be like our fall festival that we have, and that they be served in plastic cups and not bottles. Something that we've always put in there. As an officer, I'd rather get hit by, if I have to get hit with something, with a plastic instead of a bottle. So that's for my protection and my officers. No alcohol that's sold inside an establishment can be consumed in the outside area, and that's basically because of the licensing of those type of vendors, like the Tank and some of the others where they have on sale only, not off sale. So when they would be taking that out into the event, into the beer garden, that would be an off sale type of consumption. So, and that again, that the council would approve the use of the city streets for a beer garden. And those are pretty much standard. Then we're looking at traffic control devices, barricades, no parking signs, and other required devices. That'd also be a direct cost, and that would be passed on to the event organizer. Are there any questions before I've done a lot of talking here, and then I have a couple of concerns that I really wanted to get direction from you folks. So, are there any concerns what we're kind of looking at, or as far as days, hours, street usages, or?
Yeah, I just have a couple items.
Sure.
Just for clarity.
Okay.
On page, or actually on number 10.
10, okay.
For first-time events, it's 90%. For the yearly event, so once it becomes, like, obviously a second year or a third year, is that written approval not required anymore? Just for the sake
Not the
of
written
clarity?
approval. We're just looking at notification at that point, because we
Okay.
figured that basically that they've already gone through all that when it became a first-time event.
Yeah. Couple quick changes that I'd like to maybe put.
Where would that be?
Number 6 on the music, I was
Yes.
thinking that 6 o'clock would maybe be a little more reasonable because of the closing time, we're looking at 7 o'clock. And I think an hour ahead of time to kill the music might be a little bit more reasonable. That's just my thought.
Okay.
And then on number 10, I was thinking maybe 75% of the affected businesses might
For the
be a
first-time
little bit-
event?
Yeah, maybe that might be a little bit more reasonable than the 90. And then that's pretty much all I had. And then obviously you're going to go into the questions that you had.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's a good report, very good report, and it actually, it really touches on a lot of the stuff that we had issues with. I know the last go around, this last event that we were talking about, we kept referencing, the first time event for the fun run, and I just think that this has a lot of clarity where people are going to know, here's what the requirements are, here's the days, here's the times, here's what we're required on everything else. And then it just allows us as a council to be more consistent, so we're not piecemealing every event and saying, okay, well, we'll waive this or we'll waive that and everything. Just going in, everybody will say, okay, here are the requirements that everybody's going to have to comply with. And we're not put in the position every time of saying, all right, we'll do this or we'll do that. So it just kind of, it clears it up, which is really good. So thank you.
Great. Are there any other additions?
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
One of the statements in here says, use of city park for events instead of public street will be strongly recommended. If we do that, like in the case of the music, can we carry that over to the FDS Hall parks, the Louis Newman Hall, do we have standards set up for those places? Or are we going to apply these same standards?
Basically,
to them?
we have for any of those other places that we're looking at is it, the state law actually comes into play at those point where it's unreasonable noise. So, but with like the Fall Festival and those kind of events, those are ones that are events that have gone on. So they're pretty much part of our culture here, and people realize that's going to be something that's going to go on past the 5 and 6 o'clock. And this is only really covers just downtown. It does not cover some of the others, and so.
Well, the point I'm trying to make, though,
Right.
if someone decides that they want something to go on further later into the evening, then they can in turn just schedule it instead of downtown, have it at the city park and continue the music until 10 o'clock, whatever time they want, or the same thing if it's at the Louis J. Newman.
Well, we have not set standards for the park, but there are,
So that sounds like a totally different issue, because what we're trying to focus on is the downtown. And
Right.
set those guidelines and everything else. Now, if they start going into the park and doing all that stuff, then that's a totally different issue in and of itself. I mean, people can't necessarily leave this party and go to another party, essentially, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
It's the downtown deal, and then that's the time, and that's it.
that's right.
Well, should we just set standards for events now and not exclusively to downtown?
Sure.
I would think that's probably a good idea, but we'd have to put something in there about other city-owned buildings or parks.
Well, you know what, this is to maybe piggyback on what Mike's saying. Let's kind of get through this issue and then give staff direction on what we want to do for the next. I mean, we could tie it into this. So
Okay.
we could just go ahead and go what we want to do with the downtown, answer any of the questions that the chief has on the last page regarding what type of event, these different questions that he has. And after we have this downtown part, then let's just go ahead and piggyback on that. and
Add
then-
to it.
Yeah, add to it, and then
Okay.
that'll be the direction we go with.
And also, council,
Well-
we may already have some policies adopted by previous councils about amplified noise in parks. So
But we might just reaffirm though.
we'll bring those back
Yeah,
up.
we bring those
If
back.
There's an existing policy, we'll just bring that back up for your either confirmation or alteration at that point.
I know we have a contract written up for the Louis Newman, so maybe we review that and, it's like a 2-page contract and see what it says in there about noise and stuff too.
And then bring that back then,
Yeah.
and then we'll either.
The other thing with the Louis
reaffirm
Newman
or
building
alter.
too is it's kind of a distance away from any homes currently in that area. You have the school that borders it on one side and then our park on the other. So, and then right across the streets are currently just a field. So there's just, the noise factor would not probably be as much there. Louis Newman, we haven't had any issues there as of
really?
yet.
I live about two
And you
and a
hear
half
it?
blocks away from it.
Close
and
your windows,
yeah,
Mike. Yeah, I
you
can,
most
Well,
definitely.
I can
hear
We
hear
can
it
sure
every
look at
now and
standards
then.
then.
Yeah, you can hear it as if it's in the backyard.
Okay.
You know, Mike, one of the things you said in here, and I like it, and I think we should really look at it, is the use of the city park for events instead of the public street. I think to use our public streets is fine for certain events, and of course, this is the kind of thing that I think the council has to really decide. But I think so many of these events could be at the park, and I think the park can accommodate them much better without any disruption of the downtown area. And for me, I don't know why people want to have it downtown. I can see some things like the fun run and stuff like that, but I think the last event we had would have been perfect for the park. And I think we should encourage people to use the park. I think, and I would like to see us, have some kind of guidelines that leads them in that direction. And the other thing I had, and I don't know if you have any guidelines, and of course, it's not a serious problem, but we have parades. And I don't know what standards we have for parades, but I mean, I know they're an entirely different animal than something like a downtown event, but we should have some standards or something for parades as far as, justification.
We have a permit process, but we don't have actually
Okay,
set
well,
guidelines at this point.
Parades are entirely different because it's.
They're
usually not
short-term events.
The length of time that the streets are tied up, but still, anyway,
Something we can look at.
thank you.
So basically, you're asking now on the last page if we have any questions on any of these 4 items, right? whether, or the three items, what type of events are to be approved for usage of the downtown area.
Mhm.
Do we want to handle this by resolution or staff report, or how should conflicts with multiple events, how should that be handled?
Well, I can tell you, and that's going to be one that's going to be coming up, because this year, we're going to have a conflict between the Pentecost and the Newman Fun Run again. So that was one of the things that when I was looking at this is we do need to resolve that issue, and so staff's looking at direction on how.
Well,
How we do
can we go over each one of these?
Sure.
That way we can, so the first one then, let's go ahead and get some direction on that. What type of events are to be approved for usage of the downtown, and do we want to limit the types of usage such as nonprofit events, cultural events, fundraisers, or other events? So do we want to have a limit on that?
I would think that, the three cultural events, nonprofit and fundraisers, those would be, I would think, the main ones that we'd want to shut the downtown down for a day. But I don't know, maybe a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Depends on maybe some other group that's never had a fundraiser before that wants to raise money for something. I mean, I would say case-by-case
Those
basis.
usually fall on a nonprofit though, don't they?
The ones we have now, yes. Yeah.
Also, one of the questions that we had was, or do we just tie it to Newman organizations? What if an outside organization wants to? So we're trying to take our worst case scenario, because obviously this thing can snowball and we can come up with 100 different scenarios for you guys. But we just kind of want to narrow down and see what your vision of a downtown event, what your vision is, so that we can incorporate it into these policies and standards, so we make sure that we're hitting the target for you.
I would think that somewhere right in, like you said, case-by-case review, if it's out-of-town people, definitely has to be reviewed and considered, but on case-by-case basis.
Well, if I'm not over speaking, I think our vision is to promote our downtown, to promote our town, period. I think that's what we've envisioned when we've had any of these affairs, is the fact that we've invested tremendously in downtown. We made it our marquee, from the theater to the streetscaping to the facades and all the improvements that have taken place. So I think partly that's been why we've been relatively open. Now, when you spoke of mentioning to people from the outside, I don't necessarily see that per se, unless there's some kind of contact or fundamental foundation already in town. I don't necessarily see some organization coming to Newman and say, "Oh, let's promote our fair here. Let's have it in the town of Newman." The only thing I can think of that kind of even touched that a little was the little movie set deal thing. Now, there was a situation where you had someone from the outside that came in and wanted to use our town and wanted to use it in a fashion that we thought would promote it, most certainly, but we didn't have necessarily any guidelines for them, which is sort of a whole separate set of guidelines. But they wanted to do a mock parade, I believe it was.
Right.
A couple other things. So then that kind of leads us to the case by case, where that might be something we look at that way.
Well, I think, like the mayor was saying, obviously, we'll do the case by case. This is going to spell it out pretty clear. What people have to, especially for like the first time events, this is going to spell it out pretty clear what people have to comply with, the hours and everything, what their requirements are from business licenses and everything else. And then at that point, if the council deems them appropriate for, having an event, then they'll have it. But if not, then they won't. So.
And as far as the conflicts with events, I think that should be handled on a case-by-case basis also, and even amongst whoever's the conflicts, iron out amongst themselves. That's what I intend to do with the fun run, for example, this coming year. Meet with them, and both sides need to be happy in the end. So that's what I intend to do on when you have an event that's could be conflicting on the same date,
And plus,
possibly.
with this last event that we had, they had originally wanted it, a month or whatever it was ago. And, there's plenty of weekends in the year, so they were willing to be flexible. Same thing with this. And people, obviously should be able to be flexible by a week or 2 weeks or whatever the case may be, I would hope.
Well, on the Pentecost, that's a set date that they have that event, so.
Well, it's not a set date. It's never on the same exact Sunday every year.
Right.
It goes by the church calendar is
Right.
what it does. It moves.
Well,
So-
that's true,
Yeah.
but that also leads to when it does fall during an
Right,
event.
right.
So, as
In other
far as
words,
the
you-
flexibility,
Right.
I see that kind of inflexible on that particular event for them, on their side.
And we will iron that out.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we will. Yeah. We'll take care of that one, real easy.
Okay. And the other thing I was looking at
What
was,
about this part about resolution versus?
what I was
statute?
looking at is, are we wanting to make this, adopt this as guidelines, or are we wanting to actually make this as codify this? Is that kind of what you're
Yeah,
looking
it's
at?
just a, you know,
I don't
we're gonna
think
adopt
this-
this by resolution, or is this just gonna be a policy that the?
I think it should just remain a policy. If
Yeah.
you adopt it
Okay.
by codifying the ordinance, we're stuck. And I don't necessarily want us to be stuck.
Okay.
I think we're looking for some flexibility, some means to say, we might even, depending on what kind of function it is, we may alter the time. It may be something that be presented to us that in, for instance, the summertime, when it doesn't get dark to 9 o'clock,
Right.
we
You
may
could
want to be a little
tweak
more
hours
flexible.
here or there, sure.
Exactly, so I think,
Stick to the case-by-case
As a policy.
basis on a staff report. Yeah.
Well, the reason I brought that up was basically in doing the research, some cities already had that, and I wanted to see if that was something that the council wanted to entertain or not. So that was the reason for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it to hinder functions, as what comes to mind is 4th of July parade in Modesto. I know they've had some conflicts on different things, and, you need to iron things out. I think we're small enough to handle them on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so for the conflicts, that's a case-by-case basis is what we're looking at?
Mike, could we have a schedule for the year and then review that schedule at the beginning of the year so we know if there's any conflicts?
I mean, of the events that we know for sure are going to happen.
Yeah, because we know when Pentecost is going to be, and
Well, if you recall, when we had that last conflict, the council actually directed us to do a community calendar, and I do maintain one just to make sure that and that's why I knew this event was going to be coming up with a conflict.
That
So,
organization's already contacted Mike.
yes. So,
Do you want parades too, like homecoming, baseball, all that stuff too, or
the
as
parade-
far as,
parades? Or,
I'm not opposed to.
I mean, do you want to schedule all of those too, or?
Some of
Well,
those
I
move
think
around a lot.
some of 'em are
and-
kinda hard
and
to
the
figure out.
council, if you recall, they've given me the authority to be able to issue those permits or
Yeah,
not.
that's-
So, and I can tell you that we take those very seriously. so.
we make those kind of discretionary because of parades.
They come up
Yeah.
so often,
Then-
in between
and then they
council
don't amount
meetings.
to the whole downtown being shut
Yeah.
down.
Just
for the number of hours.
hour at the most.
They
Well,
just roll through.
Bob mentioned calendar events, I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, if it's possible to put them on there, I mean.
We know the dates we can put them on
If
there.
somebody got a date reserved, I mean, somebody else comes along, sorry,
Mhm.
you know.
I guess I had one quick question.
Okay.
For instance, the Chamber of Commerce reinstituted the farmer's market. That falls under these guidelines, does it or does it not? For the street
I
closure
believe it
and the
would,
time
because
frame?
Yeah,
this does not
probably.
cover city-sponsored event.
Yep.
So, like, if you have your tree lighting, that would not fall under, that's a city-sponsored event. The farmer's market, Michael, would that be considered a,
It's not city sponsored, but it's one of those events that the city works with the chambers on, so we wouldn't necessarily hold them to the same standards. We were mostly looking at outside agencies and
we-
outside,
But can we have, because that's kind of one of those things, if you don't make it clear that it's a city or just something, a quasi-city event, then you kind of open yourself up because people are like, oh, well, that's not a city event. It'd probably be best for us to make it a quasi-city event. That way, it's under that same umbrella and we aren't opening up ourselves to somebody coming in and saying, well, that's not, how come they do this? You know what I mean?
That's the reason why I posed
Yeah,
that question.
I think we'd be smart to do that.
How do we do that, though? I mean, the Chamber of Commerce is a separate entity unto its own. I know that we do have the
We could do it as
surcharge
far as,
fund.
well, we could do something like, and I'm not necessarily saying like a donation or just some in-kind services that we provide, whereas we become like a co-sponsor of the event.
Well, they have the surcharge fund that they
Well, yeah,
relatively
we could do
use.
something to where we could become a co-sponsor or something of the event, so now it's technically.
I would say the chief is there, maybe himself or another officer for security for the farmer's market or the tree lighting, and the Public Works putting barricades up. I guess that kind of could be a sponsor or co-sponsor of it if you
Yeah, it would
consider
be
that.
something in kind to where.
I don't know how
we
that
could
would,
technically
yeah.
cover ourselves as being that, so we're within those guidelines as well, so they're covered on that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't want to violate our own policy, right?
Who pays for the liability insurance on the farmer's market?
They do.
The chamber has
Chamber has
policy,
that
yeah.
policy in place. Yeah, and we required that prior to them having their first farmer's
Yeah,
market.
there's
They
a
had 12
there's a policy that covers like chamber and all the members and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Whole
I
separate
recall
policy.
some guidelines
Yeah.
that came for, okay.
At any chamber event, mixers, whatever, there's insurance for that.
So can we elbow our way in on that event, what?
You're more than welcome.
All right, that way, I mean, seriously, that way we kind of close that loop.
I don't want to speak for the chamber president, but I am a director, so I guess I can.
So is this gonna come back to us for us to adopt it as a policy?
Yes,
Okay.
I will have that for your, we're going to have a second meeting in October, so it'd be the first meeting in November.
Yeah,
Very good.
meeting in
All right.
November.
Further questions? If not, thank you, Chief.
Thank you for the direction.
Item 11, we will adjourn to meet as Newman Redevelopment Agency. Roll call, please.
Board Member Parker?
President?
Marquez?
Present.
Martinez?
Present.
Drinkwah?
Present.
Chairperson Fantasia?
Present. Our item is adopt resolution number 2006. Next number, a resolution authorizing the executive director to pay off an outstanding loan for property at Highway 33 and Fresno Street.
Thank you, Chairman. In 2002, the Newman Redevelopment Agency purchased property known as John's Muffler and Jason Property. As we were going through our processes, procedures, and other outstanding items, we came across this promissory note. We are approximately 4 years into this note. It's a 10-year note at a 7% rate. Currently, our projected ending balance at the end of this fiscal year is $782,000 in our redevelopment agency. For us to pay off this loan would be $82,376 and some change. We're recommending at this time that we just make one final payment of $82,376.26, and that would save us over $19,000 in interest over the next 6 years.
I'm not opposed to that necessarily. Have you talked to Mr. Ventura?
We have not. We sent him a copy of the report at the time.
The reason being, John can date back when we were negotiating for that particular piece of property that we thought was integral for the plaza in the downtown. There was someone else vying for the property. And John, you correct me if I'm wrong. I know I had spoken with Mr. Ventura. I believe David Reed at the time did as well, and I believe that you did.
Yes.
And one of the things about that was he gave us pretty much a first right of purchase. And within part of that agreement, I know when he retired his muffler business, that was part of his retirement plan, was the outpayment from the city. Now, notwithstanding that we have that right to pay it off and pay it in full, I think it would be real prudent to at least touch bases with him, because he, in a sense, went out on a limb to assure the city that he allow us to purchase that property, rather than, there was another venture that wanted to purchase it and make it a business. You remember?
Yeah, what happened was he gave us first right of refusal.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Because
I don't remember who it
we had
was.
explained what the plans were and what we wanted to do with the downtown and
Yeah.
everything. And obviously, he signed off on that whole deal, for the best interest of the city. So of course, he did give us first right of refusal. So I agree with what Tim's saying. I mean, he absolutely did, work with us, and he was, good about making sure that property was available to us. So at the very least, we should maybe touch bases with him. I don't know if you have or not.
I have it.
We should just
If we can look at getting a lower interest rate, something
Yeah.
that's more synonymous with the current rates going on, let's say 5%.
Yeah, see if you might be
convert
interested
that
in
over
what
to a
we-
5% interest rate.
Just at the very minimum.
Right.
I know what you're trying to do is pay off.
We're trying
so
to
we
pay it
don't
off,
these
and
additional
also
interest
we have to
payments.
recognize, in 2007 and 2008, we're going to start doing the undergrounding of the alleyways. We're going to start doing plans on those properties. We're going to start moving forward with that plaza. So, I'd like to have that paid off. Then we own it free and clear, and there's not another lien on the property, if you will, because someone else is holding the note. It's our property free and clear at that point, and that's part of the resolution. The 19,000. That's only one piece of it, but the other piece is owning that property free and clear for, I can anticipate what's going to happen. We're going to get through phase 1 and phase 2 of this plaza, and somehow we're going to come up with money for phase 3 and just get it all done. We don't want 2/3 of a plaza done, so that's going to mean tearing that down and moving it forward. So we'd like to own that property free and clear, so we can do as we will.
And I'd agree with you. I just, having been a part of those negotiations,
Okay.
and in a sense carrying our word and the word of this city, that it's really important, I think, when we negotiate and we do business, we want to continue a standard. I don't think there's going to be any real problems per se, but I know at the time, and I can remember real clearly, that the communication between he and the city at the time, and the city manager, I think at the time, it was by letter. It wasn't real smooth. We almost lost the ability to be able to purchase that property. I remember that real clearly. Something had to do about maybe going to pound salt. But
At the end of the day, we agree with you, Michael, on this, but I think it goes down to, he gave us a first right of refusal. We gave him our word. It was one of those things where, he was, it was good on his part. Just as a courtesy call, I think, more than anything else, just to touch bases with him and just let him know what our plans are. And he may very well say, fine, just pay the thing off. But
Right.
I think more than anything else, it just generates the goodwill, the fact that, hey, look, we're willing to keep our word, and you gave us the first right of refusal. We'll at least pay a courtesy call to you and let you know what's going on.
Okay.
You mentioned that you,
Great.
I'm sorry, you mentioned that you mailed this report
Yeah,
to
we
him.
sent this out to him on Friday.
Just, if you didn't hear a word from him, I'm thinking that he might not be in town. Because I would think that he would have contacted you one way or another. So he's been, he goes on these trips and stuff, so it's a good possibility he doesn't even know about it, so.
I'd like to continue
Yeah.
it.
Just for the
Just guessing. Because
Yeah.
if he received it, I'm kind of surprised we did not hear from him, knowing John for many a year, so.
Are you interested in me trying to negotiate a lower interest rate, or just kind of
Just see if he'd like to get paid off
a nice
right now.
gesture to say to him, Mr.
Yeah,
Ventura,
just,
we're gonna,
I
we're-
think first is just.
Just see if he'd like to
courtesy
get-
call
yeah.
John, let him know, hey, look, here's what we want to do. We just at least want to make personal, because Tim's right. That deal almost didn't happen. And that's a key part of our downtown that we're trying to develop. And I think for a courtesy call, just to let them know what we're doing, I think would be huge for us, just in keeping our word. And if it means that we have to wait another month or whatever, then so be it. But I
Okay.
just think in the long run, it's better.
Plus, the way our mail works, if it went on Friday, there's a good possibility he did not even get it. I'm serious. In the past, people have been mailed
It goes to Stockton and
Mailed,
it comes back.
things for a meeting on Tuesday on a Friday, and they never got it. So something like this should have really gone out like a week ahead of time to him, so.
But our
That's
mail
a good
service
point.
is terrible in this
That's a
town.
good point. There was no mail delivery yesterday, so there's a good chance that he's gonna get it tomorrow.
Put this off till November 14th.
Well, since we're talking about this property and the current lease agreement that is expired that we have on the property, we've been allowing them to go month to month. They've been for some time out of compliance with their original lease. If we are not going to be moving on that property for at least another year, another 12 months, it's high time for us to renegotiate at least another 12-month lease on that property. The property is being leased for an amount that is probably less than half of what we're paying on the property. And mind you, it's the lease has never been raised. I remember the issue when it came to discussion with us before, was some leakage in the roof or what have you. Apparently, I don't know if that's been remedied by the current lessees or not, but it wasn't that big of an issue to where I know they really would want to continue leasing it. But we really need to look at that because
It's far below market.
yeah, it's far
Wasn't
below
it like
market. And-
550 or something like that? If
and
remember
I
right?
remember real vividly, because I argued for us to lease it. We were just going to purchase it and tear it down, and it would have just been a blank lot there. John, you can recall that. And I thought it was good for the city to get some kind of return because we knew that we weren't going to be moving readily on the Plaza project. And so that's been since 2002, I believe, so almost 4 years. At least 3 years, I think we've been collecting our rent on that property. But if we're going to be at least another 12 months out,
What kind of time frame do you think, Michael? That we'll need that piece?
PG&E is scheduled to complete theirs in December of '08. We, as we speak right now, will be getting a proposal from RRM next week on construction documents.
so if
We
PG&E
have over the next 2 fiscal years money coming in that we secured through Councilman Parker's work on Stancog, and able to secure us $500,000-$600,000 there. Plus, we have an additional. We've been collecting that downtown plaza fee. So there's another $200,000 to $300,000 on there. So we have approximately about $1 million. Plus, we'll be going through the sale of RDA bonds, of which this board has earmarked $1 million towards that. So we have about $2 million towards that. So will that get us all the way? I doubt it. But you can leverage $2 million into $3 million pretty easily, by getting creative. And and hitting up some funding sources there, and then also looking at doing a service memorial out on the corner of Fresno Street and Highway 33 for all of our persons that have served in armed forces. So there may be an opportunity there to secure some funding through state, local, and federal funds.
So we would need them to vacate if PG&E December of '07 by January of '08.
You said 08 or 07. not
Yeah.
December.
Well, PG&E would be vacating in December of '08. I really think that we'll probably go into high gear construction. Would be my goal right now is the summer of '08.
So December of '08.
So,
that's definitely.
but we're going to start on Main Street at across from the theater, work our way back to the highway, and then over to Fresno.
So we're 12 to 18 months for that corner property.
Yes.
So then, if I have concurrence, I just think it would be prudent for us to look at that as a lease agreement rather than the current month-to-month as it's going.
I have one question though first. We talked about going ahead and doing the storm drain work. Is the storm drain work going to affect this corner property?
At this point in time, we do not see it affecting the
Okay,
property.
we don't have to do anything right there right now.
Because the storm drainage, there's 2 proposals and we still have to work with their engineers on. One, we can tie into something on Tulare. The other is to go out to the highway and then down the gutter to, again, Tulare and Highway 33 corner there. There's also a drainage line that you could go through the alley and then over to Fresno. Then you would have to cut into the street, and then you'd have a patch job, and we spent some money on that, so that's not the way we intend to go at this time, but I can't rule that out either.
Something to keep in mind
Yeah.
in case.
So realistically, you're probably looking, if I read Councilmember Parker right, is a lease agreement that runs through 2007.
Yes.
And then
And I
at
do
that point,
agree.
at that point in time, we could
Go
have a
back to
better
that.
gauge as to, when that site needs to fully come down.
Yes, I do concur
And
with
the reason
Tim.
why I know their lease there is far, far below market rate.
I can tell you they're trying to. They bought a new site and they're trying to relocate.
Are they?
So, yeah.
Okay.
And they'll still remain in town. They're just moving to a different.
Yeah, they have a
location in
different,
town.
already another location, so
It's just
they're not going to be upset and,
Yeah.
displaced or anything, so,
might just hurry them along a little bit.
good point. Okay, anything else on this?
Okay. So with that, I will bring this back to the November 14th meeting.
You give John a call tomorrow and see if he's even around, see if he even got the letter. If there's no more questions, we need a motion to adjourn back to regular session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, back in regular session. Item 12, items from the city manager and staff.
Just a couple items I wanted to touch on. There are some propositions that are on the state level that I want the council to be aware of. One is Proposition 90. Proposition 90 is being billed as an anti-eminent domain proposition, but there are lots of hidden costs in that proposition that could cost taxpayers billions of dollars. And it's very similar to a measure that was passed up in Oregon a couple years ago, and I think they got like $1.7 billion in lawsuits going on right now. So, and it effectively may paralyze local governments in terms of being able to change properties for public safety and those types of perspectives. So, I just like to inform the council, take a close look at that one and vote the appropriate way. Also, we have Measure K that's coming up. I know Council Member Parker is on that stand-cog committee for Measure K, which is a half-cent sales tax. I think that's a regional one, so keep an eye on that, because that's a one that I think may end up benefiting the city in the long run. I'm glad to say that the Newman 2030 general plan is out and it's being circulated right now. We've sent it out. I know all the members of the council have gotten it. Planning commissioners have gotten it. We put it on our website, cityofnewman.com. People can read it or download it for free. It'll be at the library. There's another way to review it for free. You can't check it out of the library, but you can read it at the library. You can pick up a CD-ROM at City Hall for $10, or you can pick up a set of the documents at City Hall for costly. It's $125 for the set.
If they want to just view them, they can come to City Hall and take all
They
the time
can
want.
come and see them at City Hall, or again at the library, or the last one. So, but I think the community is going to be pleasantly surprised that a lot of the feedback that we got in the workshop is incorporated into this document. I was just talking to fellow planning directors from around the county about it, and they're very excited of what we're doing here in terms of making Newman an Energy Star rated community. All houses are going to be 15% more efficient than houses in Turlock, Patterson, Modesto, and the like. Lots of them started writing that down because they have general plan updates right now, and they want to include that as well. So that is both, I think, something that will put us on the map for publicity, but also it's an economic development engine. If you're saving 15% off of your energy bill, and your energy bill is $200 or $300, there's $30 to $50 a month that you get to spend locally. And maybe that's taking your family out to dinner, or getting a little bit something extra for your kids. So we're looking at a two-pronged approach on there. So the last couple of weeks, myself and Stephanie, we spent a lot of time just kind of reviewing those documents. Again, that EIR is like 380 pages, and the general plan document is like 200 and too many. But it's a nice document. I read it plenty of times, so I know backwards and forwards. So. We did release a request for qualifications for the architectural and engineering firms for our aquatic center. And we're getting lots of calls in. I would expect that we're going to get 6 to 10 people respond to this proposal. A couple have actually already come out and taken a look around our community to try to get a little feel for us, and so I think we'll get a very good architectural engineering firm to do that. If you have not gotten on the website, a good aquatic center to look at is Redding, California. Minus a 50-meter pool, which I think we're still 15 or 20 years away from an Olympic-sized pool. The other features of that pool are pretty outstanding. I think if we could get something that mimics that or mirrors that, then we would have an outstanding aquatic center, community center. for our community. So I've already talked to the people in Reading. They've already given me the name of the designer. We started talking about some of the costs that are associated with those and running those things, and the standards. Some of the stuff are OSHA now, and you have to have lifeguards in certain positions and stuff. But you can't find that on the website, so it's a very nice facility. We do have our two and two meeting scheduled for Monday.
16th.
Yeah, the 16th at 4:30.
4:30.
At City Hall. So they've confirmed on that. We did talk about this before. I am scheduled to be out of town for our next meeting. I can have one of my staff members sit in. At this point in time, the only thing that we see coming forward is just warrants. So with that, without any other objections, we'll just go ahead and schedule the next meeting for November 14th.
The warrants just normal bill paying?
Normal bill pays, that's correct.
Everybody concur with that?
Yeah, 14's fine.
Unless there's an emergency item that comes up, we'll
Okay. We have, you did get announcements that there's a League of California Cities Division Dinner coming up. I'm gonna let the mayor speak about that. He will be the incoming president on that. If not, here's some flyers. Oh, you got yours, okay.
yeah, we got it.
And also, for those that don't have it, AB 1234 ethics training. If you haven't signed up for that, you need to get that done by the end of this year. And for $25, you get dinner too in Riverbank. So nobody wants to go to it, but
It's required.
the state's
Well,
that much
well, let's
smarter
just-
than us. So.
Let's just clarify that, I had an opportunity to attend while I was in San Diego for the 2-hour session, and we've kind of taken the lead on the local level for ethics. The state has pretty much mandated this AB 1234 for you to get some type of ethics training, which is offered through the League of California Cities during the year. They haven't mandated it for themselves at the state legislative level. So that tells you a little bit, what goes on there. We just heard a little bit of that tonight when we talk about our integrity, when we were talking about John Ventura. I can date back, and so can John, and Bob can too, to what we went out on a limb for in terms of having him give us that first right. So that's pretty much what it entails, But now that it's been mandated, one of the things I learned in that particular class was if someone was fishing to see whether or not you attended the class during the course of the year for the two years, and they would say, oh, well, you're not in compliance with AB 1234. You hadn't necessarily gone to your ethics training per se. But anytime I think that our council meetings last for 2 hours, you've already complied. Because I think as a group, and we're witnessed, by a lot of people, we carry on pretty decently when it comes to that. So that's just my
We'll sign
opinion.
us off on that then, Tim?
You know what? Actually, you could probably just make a copy of my form and sign it off for yourself.
Can't we do this on the internet?
Yeah, you can.
It's not like,
I think you can do it.
it's
on
not
the
like
internet.
traffic court.
Kidding.
No.
No, you can. You can do it on the internet.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
We can get to that website if you so desire.
The only thing I see with this, the time is not really a good time, but I mean, it is, but it's in Riverbank.
It's in Riverbank.
Well, that's why I kind of put that out there too.
Yeah.
Carpool, there's others going.
It's not a matter of carpool. Some of us work at 6 o'clock a lot of times.
Yeah.
No, that's not a problem.
So-
We'll make it.
Well, and we'll get you the website in case any of you are interested. in
I'll
doing
go.
it. Hey, get you
$25 for
Not
dinner.
that I've ever done.
Cheaper than traffic.
Oh, yeah, the city picks it up.
Yeah, city picks up the cost. So if you'll just let Judy know, and she'll
Free dinner.
she'll respond for you. So just let Judy know who's going to attend on that. So with that, I'll turn it over to my other department
Put
head.
us down.
Staff reports this evening? Guys, wake up back there. Staff reports or, oh.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Just let you know, this last 3 weeks of soccer season, it's been pretty smooth sailing. Youth basketball registration began October 2nd and continues through November 9th. Adult basketball, the paperwork is being completed. It's actually completed, I just need to print it up and get it out to Dean and the newspaper so that I can go out in the paper. And that's about it. Any questions?
You know, I got a quick question for you about Barrington Park. We built the new parking lot over there. It seldom seems to be getting used. Is there a possibility that maybe the coaches from soccer to baseball or just be informed through the city, through Parks and Recs, that we really would like for them to start using the parking lot over there so we no longer have the complaints of the double parking and parking in the driveways and so we don't have to move towards, maybe some type of enforcement? Because it's been there for some time and it pretty much stays empty. People are still stuck in the mode of what they had been doing. And Bob, you remember how much clamoring was going on with the folks that live there on Barrington. Well, they're certainly still complaining because now they see that parking lot that's finally there and it's not being used.
I do know during
Have to
baseball
retrain 'em.
season, we did post flyers. Michael asked me to post flyers out there informing the people that there was an additional parking.
Yeah. I'd like for us to maybe, push it a little bit, maybe through the coaches, tell the parents with their kids and stuff. Just make it a general announcement. But I think with the coaches, it kind of carries some additional weight because I think our next move will be to have the police department out there flagging folks for the violations, which we don't want to create that in a sense necessarily because we have, how much did we spend, Ernie?
Oh, about almost 80,000.
Money well spent. So, just a suggestion.
We can try.
Thank you.
Ernie, one question on that parking lot. There's a space between the parking lot and the field. Are we gonna do anything with that as far as extend the field, or is that?
Yes, we are. At the present time, we've gotten two bid quotes to put in the sprinkler system, come in and put in some turf, and also put in some trees along the parking lot, and get all that, get the park extended all the way to the grass extended all the way to the parking lot. And I think that'll make it a little more inviting for them too.
I use the parking lot.
Yes. Oh, well, I'm up here. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I only have one informational item. Chief Plant Operator Lance Perry reported that on a Thursday night on September 28th, a hawk flew into two power lines out there, and so it caused one of the fuses from PG&E to burn up and left them with low voltage. So the first thing Friday morning, he called PG&E. They came, they restored the power, they removed the fried hawk, and gave him full power. But as he proceeded to go around trying to reset the pumps and the blowers, he couldn't get any response out of them, including the one tail water pump. So E&M Electric came out, and 5 out of the 6 time delay coils at the motor control center at aeration basin number 1 were fried. They were able to get one going, and they ordered 5 new ones, and so it's back up and running. They also checked the tailwater pump. They found out that the coil in the starter also was fried. And then he noticed that his well pump wasn't running, and so he found out that the submersible pump motor was fried as well. So they've been working out there and repairing all these. The aeration basin number 2 was able to be restarted and was running fine, and also the irrigation pumps for the overland flow system and tailwater pump station B. And the reason is because they came in on a different feed, even though they were knocked out. So he had a crazy time out there, and he's got quite an expense going out there. So just wanted to let, and there's nothing you can do to protect yourself against low voltage. High voltage, you can have those boards that'll kick it, the equipment right off, but on low voltage, they just sit there and fry, and there was nothing he could do about it. So, any questions?
Ernie, one comment.
Sure.
The people who own the property on the north side of Sherman Parkway had
Yeah.
a complaint the other day that the landscape contractors who were cleaning out the bottom of that open ditch were taking the weeds and taking them across the street and depositing them on their property, of which the property owner saw him do that and advised him not to do it anymore. Would you follow up and make sure that that's understood, that that's private property and that's not where their trash should be disposed of?
Sure thing. I will follow up on it even further. It was reported to Bud Cardoza, which is the representative for SCM, because we haven't accepted that basin yet. And we told him that there was a concern on that, and so we're going to make sure that they don't do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie.
Ernie, one last thing. I noticed they put sod on the park strip.
Yes, they
Gave up, huh?
Yeah, well, actually, they did it at the request of
really?
our Public Works Superintendent, because he made this comment that even though it's no mow, it's what we're using along the channel, but that park strip through there, that it would look a lot better with sod, and so they changed it to sod. So they're working with us. But the no mow remains underneath the fence and also down the slope. So they just did that one section.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will be walking that park again tomorrow, Ernie, myself, and the contractor, to see how close they are for us to accept that. So.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. Just a couple items. One is, we've already kind of gone over this a little bit, but the Mexican Heritage Celebration went off. Weather wasn't always the best. They got rained on towards the end of their event, but it was well attended, and with no incidents going on. So, for a first-time event, thought it went very well. Next is on Friday, we are now NIMS compliant. We remember what NIMS is. That's that National Incident Management System. We had a training here in Newman over at the fire department, and for those that weren't able to do the training online, we were able to get the rest of our city staff all up to snuff on that. So we are compliant with that, and that's very important, because that's, if we want to receive any kind of federal funding, you have to be NIMS compliant. So we've done it. You've already adopted it as the city plan for disasters, and we've also done the training now. That's the two main things. But there will be additional trainings coming up, and I'll keep you apprised of those when those come available. Lastly, what I'd like to talk about is that we are in partnership with the schools on a school attendance review board, and they're going to be utilizing our council chambers on Thursday once a month, and we're partnering up with our school resource officer, and myself will be sitting on that. So just another way we're trying to work with the schools, and because if they're not in school, they're either causing problems for our police department or they're not learning. So just looking at that. So if the council has any kind of questions, I'd be more than happy to answer anything.
Questions?
I've got one question. When I was coming home tonight, I happened to be coming down 33 from Gustine, and tell me what the procedure is. There was 2 Newman Police Department officers, and they were south of town. One of them was off the road, and the other one was a quarter of the way on the road. They did have their lights on, and they were blinking, but the one that was on the road was posing quite a traffic problem. In other words, the oncoming traffic had to pull out and go around him into the incoming lane. I'm sure there's a procedure for that. Is that the way they're supposed to?
He may have been just a little bit too far out into the lane, but basically what they're trying to do is create a corridor of safety for them when they come up to up to the car itself, up to the violator's car. So that means it would cause traffic to go away, so the officer does not get hit by oncoming traffic. So that's the purpose. But he may have been just positioned the car just a little too far out into the traffic lane. So
seems like more of a hazard than not sticking out there.
Better for the car to get hit than for an officer. But the way that the chief explained it, I've seen those scenarios with CHP because they're out on the highway a lot. But there's not enough shoulder area per se, but just depends on what the shoulder area looked like.
Thank you.
So sure.
Thank you, Chief. Items from the city council members. Tim?
Just briefly, on October 6th, I was in Bakersfield, California with Mayor Jim Reitnauer from the city of Modesto. We went down as the chair and vice chair of STANCOG with the executive director, Mr. Vince Harris. We met with the San Joaquin Valley regional planning agencies that consisted of Kern County, Merced, King, Fresno, Madera, San Joaquin, and Tulare. And we met with a number of county supervisors, other council members from those relative COGs, and we were discussing regional transportation issues that affect us up and down the 99 corridor and over here west to Highway 5 and all that's in between. And one of the aspects of our topic were the fact of counties trying to become self-help. Michael touched bases on it real briefly about Measure K that is going to be very informative and I think important for our county. But those were the things that we discussed on last Friday. And I have nothing further.
Thank you, Tim. Charles?
Yeah, couple quick items. I know we have our facade improvement program for the facades downtown. We have it more structured as a loan program. And being that we're investing even more into the downtown, i.e. the plaza and some of the other stuff that we're starting to do, might make sense to look into maybe doing some type of micro grant for redevelopment for the facades. Maybe something that isn't so, paper with so much paperwork, and just maybe look for maybe some of the smaller facades, maybe something quick that people come in, obviously the staff approves it, they kind of do that way it's a lot quicker, it gets done a lot faster. So, and the downtown is obviously in the redevelopment area, and it could be, certainly considered blight if those facades are in need of improvement. So, I'd recommend that we take a look at that. Maybe something like $1,500 as a grant, if that's possible. Is that something that we could look at?
We actually have that in place as we speak.
Okay.
I think it actually goes up to a little bit higher than 1,500. It's either
Okay.
2,000 or 2,500.
Okay, because I know we
And
had
it's all
the
based
amount-
on how much money they spend.
Right,
It's
because
a
I know we had the
matching.
2,400 was like the, I know there was a 2,400 amount. Maybe I just didn't recall.
Yeah, we have both a loan program and a grant program.
Okay. What was it, what did you say the amount was on the grant?
I want to say it's between 2,000 and 2,500,
Okay.
but I could report
Okay.
that
I
back
just
to you.
wasn't aware of
I'll
that.
report that back to you.
And then on the, on our website, excuse me, do we have, and I was just looking at it maybe a few weeks ago, and it still kind of had the same, when you type in thecityofnewman.com, it still kind of looked the same from as long as I can remember. Could we maybe send a staff member or two to a web design class? Have we thought about doing that?
We're working with Gordon Barbosa right now for
Okay.
revamping the whole website that's
Okay.
already in your budget. So
Okay,
we've,
but I'm thinking, and I'll give you an example. I learned how to do them, basically on my own, and I had some help with it. It's actually fairly simple once you actually start getting the hang of it. And I think rather than it might be useful rather than going out and paying some firm to doing a mass update of it and paying X amount, it might be wise really to have a person on staff that we send to a couple of web design classes, some intro ones, and then obviously getting into the more advanced ones to make the site look really nice. But having that person on site, at where we have them to be able to to do updates and to when they need to re-upload files and to do all that different stuff. That way we're not in a sense held hostage to a firm that's doing all the stuff for us. And then every time we need to do a massive update or we need to upload like the general plan or we need to do different stuff like that, at least we have somebody on hand who's technically sound enough to be able to do that. I think it might be wise to have somebody trained, and that I think it'd be wise, really.
I agree. We're just looking at Gordon to do the update, like you said, and then have staff members update it. Right now, currently, like with the general plan, I'm putting all the stuff on there, and I don't disagree with you. It's not that hard to update the sites, but to do a complete overhaul, we just don't have the time and the creativity to do it right now. So we want to get the complete overhaul done, and then the operations and maintenance will resume back to staff. So we don't have to have that capital outlay on a monthly or yearly basis. We'll be able to switch it over to that. But
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Charles. Bob?
Oh, just to mention, Michael Holland had talked about, we just received our general plan update and environmental impact report. I'd like to say that, started reading it, and of course, I haven't gone through it yet because there's a lot of information, but I will say that I'm very proud of the steering committee and all those people that helped to put this manual together. You know, it's certainly a blueprint of what Newman's going to look like in 24 years from now, because that's, they're saying 2030. But don't be afraid to get in and read it, because it's something that's clear and concise and easy to read, and it has a lot of good information about Newman. And the city should be proud of this report. And every town needs a general plan so they know the direction they're going in. So I just recommend that anyone who can should get a copy of it and read it. And I think that Michael has indicated there's a number of ways you can do it, and I think that, you know, be it get a disc or whatever, or get a copy, but well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Mike?
I've only got one thing, and I should have brought this up earlier when Ernie was here. Someone asked me about Yolo Street. There are yellow reflectors on that street, but there is no yellow line, a dividing line. Is that something that we need to do? Is done annually, has disappeared?
That has to do with our painting machine. It broke, and so the striper doesn't work on the machine itself. We only use the gun now to do the stop signs, the stencils, and all of that. So what I'm going to have to do is get hire one of these painting contractors to come out and do those lines for us. I have, not only am I we have that one missing there on Yolo, but we also have them faded out over on Inyo. And those streets are heavily traveled, especially during the foggy season. So that's one of the things that we need to get done.
Are we better off getting our striping machine fixed or buying a new one as opposed to having somebody come in and do it?
We need a new one, but I need to take a look at the budget and see where I'm at and price some of the new machines. We've had that machine for the longest time, and I don't think that it can be repaired. So
If you'd look into that.
I sure will.
The foggy season is going to be here soon.
Yes, it is.
Is that it, Mike?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I just had a couple things. This last Friday, I hosted a small group of the Army Corps of Engineers from Sacramento. Had a agriculture economist came down, and we had one of the farmers there. Went over just some things, update their report from 2000 on values of crops that got flooded in the creek's path. And we're just updating their numbers for households in Newman since 2000 and businesses, which will help our overall project, hopefully. And it is definitely picking up steam this past year, and I think after the election it's going to pick up more steam with our federal and state electeds. So we're on track for that. And I just wanted, as Michael Holland mentioned, League of California City Divisional Meeting, Thursday, October 26th, whoever can make it. It's going to be in Manteca. They're opening a brand new sports park. They're going to have a couple guest celebrities. Bill Russell, Vita Blue are going to be there, so whoever can make it. It's also a business meeting for the division. I am the incoming president of the division. Tim is the vice president. And hopefully you can make it. If anybody can, we can carpool.
Is that a first, John?
We're not too. Yeah, we're not.
I didn't get that
Is that a first of the
We're still.
same city?
We're
vice
still checking the
president?
legalities on that, but so far they said it was okay. So, with that, we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you very much.
Did you have a paper about our water? Who cares? That was pretty good.
They just said it, yeah, it just
Ninth
sounded.
and
No, it sounded. Yeah.
And then they said, well, why not?
At first they.
Something else?
At first they said, I don't know about that.